Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Kim Cowan and I'm the Student Rights and Responsibilities Manager here at UAGC, and I'll be the host of this session, Strengthening Student Engagement, we're working toward, open access as innovation in higher education culture. Or that's actually the name of, my apologies. I'm reading the slides, Becky, so my apologies. But strengthening student engagement,
I can move it forward.
You're good. Creating access to academic and professional success through innovative curriculum. By joining us today, you acknowledge that this session is being recorded and will be shared with TLC-related materials. Microphones will be muted for this presentation, but we encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat. Also, we have enabled live transcription. If you would like to use it, click the live transcription button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Now that I've had such a great entrance here, I'm pleased to pass it over to Becky Campbell and the rest of the faculty from the Academic Engagement Center to get us started.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. Before we get started, in the chat, I would like everyone to think back to your undergraduate days, specifically to your general education courses, and in the chat, share which course you were really dreading in your undergraduate gen ed courses. Oh, it's math. I'm looking
How
for
surprising that math is the winner.
Or and English will be a runner-up, I would think. Oh, see, yep, there it is. History, more math, public speaking. Oh, that was the last gen ed course I needed to move on to my major courses was public speaking. Biology. Okay, so then in the chat, share a general education course you learned something in that you still use today or was more interesting than you originally thought. For instance, I had to take a sociology course. I was really not looking forward to that sociology course, but it ended up having an interpersonal communication aspect to it, which it's information I still use today, especially with my spouse when we're not agreeing. You know, they're just really good skills. So see, calculus, didn't want to take it, but you learn from it. Literature, biology, philosophy too. Music and art. Some of these courses are, there's kind of a disconnect. You don't understand why you need them at the time. And that's what we're going to talk about. As Kim said, my name is Rebecca Campbell. I'm a faculty member here at the University of Arizona Global Campus. And one of the questions so many instructors who teach general education courses have is, why do I have to take this course? This is a question that applies to all institutions of higher learning, but especially to open access institutions. Open access institutions tend to have older students who are holding down jobs and raising families and are seeking to advance their career through education. For instance, at our institution, most of our students are over the age of 25 and 70% are employed at least part-time per NCES data in 2018. So to tell a student who might be a business major that they have to take a film course can create confusion, and it can be disheartening to them. This view of the course can impact student success in that course, as noted by Ederig. Some students get into their major course of study. When they do, they can see how those courses directly relate to their career goals. In general education courses, this connection isn't as clear, so we have to make it clear. We in the Academic Engagement Center within the School of General Studies at the University of Arizona Global Campus, I know that was a mouthful, have implemented a number of innovations in our courses over the last few years to, pardon me, I have jumped ahead somehow. Okay, in our courses over the last few years to connect the content of the course to professional skills with the intention of engaging students in course content. So when students can see this connection, they become more invested in the course, they develop the skills they need, and they are more successful. This panel highlights curricular innovation for 5 academic engagement center courses, some of which are the most anxiety-producing courses, and other students may just have a difficult time seeing the relevance of. And to begin, I will hand things off to Dr. Teresa Handy.
Thank you, Becky. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our Gen 101 course. Next slide, please. Gen 101 is the first course most students take when they enter our institution, and it's designed to acclimate our students to the university and to increase their student engagement. In fact, during the first 2 weeks, Gen 101 instructors spend a great deal of time interacting with each student through multiple complex discussions that explore why students are returning to college at this time in their lives. So let me ask you, and this is a rhetorical question, have you ever started a journey not knowing why and where you're going? The answer is likely no. It's nearly impossible to arrive anywhere worth going without a plan to get there. And that's what Gen 101 does. It provides a plan for open access students to begin their college journey. Imagine being a deployed military officer or a person returning to college after 20 years, or imagine being a person just recently involved with the justice system, or maybe you're a new parent with 2 children at home, or you're just out of a rehab facility. Having a plan as you start something new like college gives you a lay of the land that is likely going to be very important. You see, open access institutions have students from all walks of life, and the challenge for Gen 101 was to engage all of those varied student experiences and position them for academic success. As you can imagine, Gen 101 accepted that challenge, and we try to do just that. Throughout the course, students are exposed to and encouraged to connect with student resources. In week 2, they literally focus on and visit many of the student resources available to them so that students know how to find the help they need. There's a clear partnership between the advisor and the instructor that helps students feel connected to the institution. And what we hear from students is that they don't often have an opportunity to do that level of self-reflection that we're asking them to do, and with this level of support. Our instructors are overwhelmingly available to the students via email, Zoom, and sometimes their personal cell number. And there also are assignments and quizzes, but they are cleverly embedded into specialized learning activities. The course also helps students understand their strengths and soft skills. They begin to think futuristically with their SWOT analysis, and they begin to think about barriers to their educational journey. By encouraging students to view barriers or challenges as opportunities for growth rather than roadblocks, we begin to shift their mindset. And again, teaching students through discussions to plan and think ahead, it lets them see that effort and perseverance can help them achieve their goal of a college degree. Next slide. To further support students feeling seen in the course, we were very intentional in our selection of graphic images used in the course. One of the other ways we were intentional was in the development of a cognitive primer with composite students that our real life students can identify with a relatable storyline. And we share many of the experiences that we hear from our students in that storyline, such as fitting college into their busy lives, returning to school as a working parent, wanting more, and not quite knowing the path and how to ask for help. Through the videos and interactives, students see and hear themselves as the characters share and problem solve together. Next slide. By the time our students wrap up Gen 101, they have touched all student resources, they've joined a student group, and they've connected with career services. In addition, they connect their academic and professional goals to institutional resources and professional resources. We connect their identified degree to their goals, which helps them see the real-world connections. Our Gen 101 students in the course reflecting and mapping out their college journey so they can stay on track, including the school resources available to them as part of that plan. Our students share that Gen 101 makes them feel connected to the institution, and it provides them with a strong foundation to go on to their next course. And you'll hear about that one from my colleague, Jen. Wait, am I handing it off to Jen? Okay.
Yep. Can you hear me? Sorry, it's been a day for computer fun. So as we move through this portion of the presentation, think about how you learn to be information literate in high school or in your first year of college. Did you have a specific information literacy course? Who showed you how to use the library? How did you learn the difference between scholarly and popular sources? When and how did you learn to evaluate those sources? And what do you wish you would have known that you did not know before entering your first year courses? Many Gen 103 students report that they either do not recall learning these pieces, or it has been so long that they feel like they have not used these skills in quite some time. Likewise, many may not regularly visit a library and may not quite understand how to use an online library in a way that maximizes their learning. Information literacy reminds students that they use these skills every day, but we're going to bring names to what they are doing and show them how they have been using them, and then build their capacity to use them even better. Next slide, please. In information literacy, we focus a great deal on the power of information, its uses, misuses, and how to adequately evaluate sources for appropriateness given a topic, audience, and purpose. There are two highly focused frameworks for this course. First, we use the framework for information literacy. Oh, next slide, please. First, we use the framework for information literacy from the Association of College and Research Libraries. There we go. All activities we use in our course fall into one or more sections of this framework. Next slide, please. In addition to the framework for information literacy, we use this really funny sounding test called the CRAPO test to help build students' capacity to evaluate sources for appropriateness. Each week of Gen 103 will take students through a piece of this test and provide a deep dive into why that specific piece is important for understanding if their sources are appropriate for personal, professional, or academic contexts. Next slide, please. We use the framework for information literacy and the CRAPO test within the research process. So students are doing their own research, choosing their own topics, and searching for their own resources using both frameworks within the research process. So as a quick overview, in week 1, they're choosing the research questions and they're determining keywords. And I'll get to why that specific piece is important in a moment. In week 2, we're having them now search using those keywords, having them search in the library for scholarly and popular sources. And we have them go to a live learning in week 1. I put it in week 2 because that's where the skills start to be used. But in week 1, we have them go to a live learning session where we teach them how to very specifically use the library, how to save their resources. Our busy adults may have 30 tabs open on their computer. The cat walks across it, all of the tabs are gone. In the library, many students do not know that we have a folder where they can save all of their research to maximize their precious time. And in addition to lots of other fun things about the library. In week 3, we're now having them explain whether their sources are scholarly and popular. And by this, we're getting to learn if they understand the characteristics of those sources. And then finally, in week 5, we have them reflect over the entire process. But one piece that's really interesting for our current students, especially ones who are heavily using social media, is this little piece of the keywords. Very often when students use keywords, and this is an overt connection we make to their lives, when they use keywords, many times students will list all of the words related to that topic as if they're listing hashtags. So we have to explain to them that the keywords specifically relate to their questions to help them with their research, because hashtags are meant to expand an audience. Keywords are meant to narrow a search. And it's really interesting how students take that pivot and how much more success they have with that one little tip. So while we are focusing on academic work, we're also weaving in their professional and pop culture references to academic integrity and information literacy. Next slide, please. To further guide students into thinking about how these concepts connect to their professional lives, in addition to their academic lives, and to create smaller groups, the discussions in Gen 103 in the newest version that will be launched December 5th has been designed with small groups by major topics of interest. So the idea here is that when students go into a discussion, they will not have that long list of 40 students worth of engagement. but they'll be able to dive into these smaller groups based on more program-specific ideas. So education, health sciences, applied health sciences, business, and then general studies for students who may not feel like they fit one of those specific pieces. But now we're going to take them into really thinking about how these pieces of information literacy are connected to their specific major. Next slide, please. So here's an example. There we go. Here's an example of one of the scenarios from week 3, when we discuss authority and accuracy from the Crapo test. But we're also working under authority is constructed and contextual from the information literacy framework. And as you can see here, the prompts that students have are the same. But if you look down at the 2 examples, you can see that the sources that we're asking them to analyze are more related to their major. So for the box on the left, we have them analyzing a source from Candy Box Marketing. So this is the business scenario. In health sciences, we're having them analyze something from gerontology, which is more related to health sciences. So the idea is that we're pulling students in to make overt connections between their study, these specific components of information literacy, but also making references to their everyday lives. Next slide, please. Part of information literacy is understanding that information has value and that we need to uphold academic integrity. And we cover different types of things like plagiarism, what this looks like, how plagiarism can be avoided, but we're also bringing in outside examples. So we ask students how to share how popular culture examples of plagiarism and breaches of integrity impact their own viewpoints of upholding academic integrity in their personal, professional, and academic lives. So you can see on this list, we have lots of different examples where there were copyright or integrity issues, issues of ethics in just everyday stuff. And we find these connections are really fun for students to make and helping them think of academic integrity and information literacy in a different way. Next slide, please. So when UAGC students leave information literacy, they've not only learned how to use information literacy for their courses, but have taken time to deeply consider how this information impacts their professional lives and how society at large views information, its use, and how it's protected. Likewise, they learn what violations of information literacy and academic integrity look like, how bias can impact them, and the larger implications for not being information literate. So now, as we've gone through all of this information, consider how much more prepared UAGC students are, not only for being information literate in school, but beginning to connect the pieces of information literacy, evaluating sources, and understanding the different types of sources at work and beyond. So now I will turn it over to our next general education hero.
As I said before, excuse me, my name is Rebecca Campbell, and I teach within communication arts here in the Academic Engagement Center here at UAGC, teaching reading strategy as well as writing. Gen 104 is a laboratory with lots of low-stakes practice and self-reflection. The goal is to test out different reading strategies for different reading contexts for effectiveness so students can take with them a set that is effective for their individual needs. This makes Gen 104 more relevant to students because they are working directly with the strategies that will impact them and help increase their success in each subsequent course. Some of the innovations in Gen 104 to highlight the relevance of effective reading skills include student-directed learning. Students get to choose which strategies they will try out, and they can switch those strategies as needed. This helps to account for student preferences and habits. For instance, we read on screens a lot due to necessity, and some students would prefer to read on paper. So we discuss these differences and the adjustments that have to be made depending on which medium they are using to read. We discuss the pace of reading. Everyone has their own natural reading pace, but there may be times when slowing down is beneficial. Or some students feel discouraged if their natural reading pace is on the slower side, and we discuss how this is perfectly fine and often even advantageous. There is student choice in the course, which students have some autonomy over what they read in class. Some readings are required. Some students can choose from a provided list, and some they can choose entirely on their own. For instance, we look at informative narrative and academic text separately, but we also look at them together. And in that particular activity, students select a group of articles from a set of pre-approved topics, and each group includes an academic source, a popular source, and a professional source. And students compare how this one topic is written about in different ways for each of these sources. We also connect reading to different academic disciplines. We read a variety of materials throughout the course to include giving students the opportunity to explore material within their discipline. Students explore reading material from their field in the library, and they also learn about how reading within their specific field might have some differences from other fields. Students also connect these skills to their profession. In their final project, they discuss how the skills in this course could be used outside of the classroom, either in their personal or professional lives. And many students connect a specific reading strategy to a specific reading task they may have in their future profession. But also many students share how these strategies have already been helping them in their current role. There is a lot of low stakes practice in this course. We know that we need to practice to develop a skill, but there can be a certain amount of apprehension in demonstrating those skills when they are tied to a grade, which can in turn impact performance, and that's a cycle we sought to disrupt. So we have many opportunities in this course to practice different ways of reading using different approaches in which students are graded more on completion and reflection versus correctness. The feedback for these activities is meant to help students understand why their approach was or was not effective, and so they can make adjustments moving forward. And these activities are worth a small portion of a student's overall grade. So if for some reason they really miss the mark, it would have little impact on their overall grade. This skill of iteration and revision often applies to their career as well. Most of all, we work on practical application. Rather than reading about how these skills will be used, students actually practice them within the course, and instructors guide their process. Emphasis is on progress, not perfection. We read to learn in this course, but we also read to practice. And while we have students explore many strategies and choose their strategies, we do emphasize annotating in some way. And to help facilitate this, we have live sessions in which an instructor demonstrates annotation for students by explaining the notes and marks they make as they read. This helps students to know what sorts of things they should mark during their own reading. Different instructors run these sessions and they annotate in different ways, so students have the opportunity to attend multiple sessions to see these differences. The instructors emphasize that there's no one way to annotate, but that annotating itself is what's important. In the last week of the course, we connect reading to writing. This is meant to prepare students for their first composition course, which often comes very soon after Gen 104. And seeing this connection between reading and writing not only motivates students to complete the reading more thoroughly, but also helps to alleviate some of their concern about taking a college-level writing class. The goal is to make students aware of the vast array of reading material that exists and the different approaches they can take when reading that material to learn from it effectively to increase their success in each subsequent course, both general education and discipline specific, and also to highlight how continuously developing their reading skills is important beyond the classroom. I will only briefly mention English 121. As one of the courses that students are most apprehensive about, this composition course has to work hard to allay student fears and also convince students of the importance of clearly written communication. The good news with writing instruction is that we can write about almost anything to learn about writing. In the case of this course, students write about their career path. It is directly related to their educational goals. They reflect on their writing skills, they explore the writing skills needed in their career, and they develop a plan to fill any gaps between where they are and where they want to go. Students use what we call writing notebooks to engage with the practical side of writing. Pardon me. Such as thesis statements and essay structure. And rather than place a high value on these skills in an assignment, English 121 uses the writing notebooks to give students a chance to give a skill a try, and if needed, another try. There's less anxiety about being perfect since students can give it another go. As writing is an iterative process, it also gives students practice with writing and revising their work while also getting to explore more about their career. And now I will hand things over to Ourso.
Thank you so much. So while I'm sharing my screen, I'd like to ask for those who put that math was one of the things that they were challenged by. Excellent. What helped you succeed in that stats, math, or any math or calculus class that you listed at the very beginning? Would something that my colleague Becky just mentioned, that having another try, have been something that was helpful? Okay, we'll see if anyone decides to post in the chat. I'll be monitoring the chat in case anyone decides to answer that. So one of the things, what I consider open access is that this means our offerings are inclusive and students who enjoy an extra layer of support are covered. Okay, yes, real world connections. Okay, so one person said more tries, one person said real world connections, a couple more people said ability to resubmit their work. So one of the things that we offer in our, and tutoring or extra help would also definitely help. Having extended time and another help. Yes, someone with dyscalculia would definitely be allowed to have not only extra time, but additional chances. And in fact, that's sort of our philosophy. In all of the math classes at UAGC in the School of General Studies, we always have students have the opportunity to give an additional chance. But in addition to that, we have live learning mathematics. Now, live learning is a thing our whole university is doing, so it's not just a thing we do in math. But in live learning mathematics, we found Dr. Mingzhen Bao spearheaded a whole university-wide initiative. And in math or other courses like it, like science, technology, engineering, those types of courses, students earned 8.1% more than similarly matched peers. And they were 22% more likely to pass. So the live learning mathematics, really in just one session, the student really gets a leg up. And I think that mention in the chat about needing tutoring or support, that is what really makes a difference for many students. Students also, we found in our study that was done by the Office of Institutional Effectiveness, students reported an increased sense of belonging, a greater student voice. Some students would say, I feel like I'm in a real college class. So there's something about going to live learning that really makes a difference. And so students who enjoy that extra layer of support, if we have multiple sessions of live learning each week, they really do have that sort of a safety net. And last Tuesday, we were visited by Flo, who loves insurance. And it may be that students who experience this kind of safety net, hey, I know if I have questions, I can check in on Tuesday night, that they experience it as a sense of insurance that no matter what I run into, I'll be supported in completing this class. So one drawback of live learning is at first we made it optional. And we found that while the results were amazing, that there was a low percentage of students who chose to attend. So we began partly inspired by Jen Robinson's success with her Gen 104 class. We began to do required live learning, and each time we revised a class, we folded in required live learning into that revision. So now, if you have students who maybe don't know how great an impact a single synchronous session would provide, we sort of provide a nudge by having live learning be required. And the way it's required is that it's tied to a discussion. So students don't know what the questions are for that discussion that relates to a course learning outcome until live learning mathematics session is attended. So they discover, or the questions are unveiled as along with in a package with support, where we connect with the students, connect the material to the real world, and then provide this clear, concise explanations about this. And all of those required live learning sessions are tied to the real world. I did speak on that yesterday, so if you have more questions about that, you can learn about that. Eventually there will be a recording. This most recent class that we incorporated required live learning into is called Math 232, and that is our introductory statistics class. A recent comment I read from a student praised that we stress the growth mindset at the beginning of the class. There's an introductory video, there's a video on how to succeed each week, plus a few more, and they credited that as a significant contributor to their class. And another professor sent me a note literally just 1 or 2 days ago, talking about a student who said that the live events for this class, the introductory to statistics, the homework with StatCrunch, for which, by the way, I made 50 instructor tips, over 50, so students would get a hint if they were stuck when they were working those problems. And then the ability to go back over and over until you received 100% just made learning the material so much easier. That is the heart of it. I felt I actually learned the material while in this class. And this student was so excited that they sent a note to their advisor praising their instructor, Professor Jean and Sinja. This was the same student who said they put off taking the class multiple times to delay, thinking it was going to be too hard. So I want to show you a few of the other features. This won the course award. And so I can show you a little bit about what made this course stand out, perhaps. Remember, it's not the best math course. This was the best college course. We had an extensive classroom walkthrough, a lot of video in the class. We studied 1,500 of our students to see what they were missing on the midterm and the final exam. And then I created customized 10 video tutorials that covered those targeted problems. Within the learning activities, we also linked those to those in the resources page. The learning activities really made a difference. And we had a practice midterm and final so students could get ready. One of the key features of the class that I think a lot of classes did afterwards is that we had learning activities. So you're seeing one play on the screen. Students can click on the individual and then they can read about what that professional might ask. And then at the end of clicking on all of them, the student is invited to role play. So students are seeing how this math is related to the real world. And then at the end, the student is asked, well, how would you role play this if you were a manager? And then the very last question asks, consider how something similar might be used by a manager in your field. So these are very relatable, very engaging real life examples that are used in here. And another thing that we did in this class is there is actually a chat bot. So when students are taking the final exam, they can see and hear.
You may have, and I am updated frequently in case you ask a question I haven't heard before.
The math chat bot. And Matilda, this was created with my details by Dan Tignano. All the technical stuff was done by Dan. The student just types in the number of the question they're on or spells out the word, and then they can see the instructor tip or the hint so that they are helped even real time right during the exam. Another thing is that here is the list of the videos I talked about. These were also provided to professors teaching the course in the math faculty SharePoint. There are a lot of cool things in these interactives, but here is a list of the videos that students could view while they were taking the class. So our statistics class had a lot of great features, but we also have the Math 205 class, which has a really cool feature that students are invited to pick a math avatar. So in Math 205, students can click on the overview that week and they're brought to this tab where they are treated to not only a welcome to the week video, but also the ethnomathematics video, where students may learn about mathematicians and people who have done math that maybe hadn't been in the forefronts of their mind. It ties mathematics to the person's ethnic heritage. And in addition to that, students are able to learn. I sort of based the people that I chose on a famous talk by Michael Dorff on the Frodos and Seeleys of mathematics. And a lot of times students think a person who's good in math is a mathematical genius and nothing like them. So what we did is we suggested that students select a personalized avatar for the course. And if you click on this link, you can click on more avatars. And my hope is that as students scroll through learning about mathematicians like Linda Ferruto, Katherine Johnson, Alan Turing, Francis Su, Valerie Thomas, Ron Buckmeyer, Catherine Leonard, and more, that they could find someone whose problem-solving style or who they could relate to in some way. And students are encouraged to actually change their own avatar in the classroom to one of the images provided in the class. So when we have a course addition or add-on like this that really treats the student as the whole person, that is one way that we are really being inclusive. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Connie to share our conclusion.
Okay, wonderful, Holly. I do believe that C would have become a B or an A if I would have taken your class. In fact, I think I might just sign up. I'm Connie Lauer, a UAGC professor and a proud member of the Entry Point Gen 101 team, and I'm going to wrap this up for everyone. So thank you so much for attending our presentation of the sampling of the general education courses in our UAGC Academic Engagement Center, which is part of the School of General Studies. The curriculum in all of our general studies courses has been and continues to be designed to be innovative, interactive, career-focused, reflective of real-world experiences, and created with the understanding that open access students bring with them a large variety of skills and attributes that deserve consideration. Critical thinking is also a hallmark of AEC courses, with scheduled revisions occurring regularly to update to current skills and thought processes. Live learning, synchronous sessions, which are expanding to all our courses, offer students connection and engagement with instructors and fellow students. And our data shows that students who attend live learning sessions are more likely to pass the course with a higher grade percentage. Attention to DEIB, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, assures that all students feel welcome and comfortable in the general education UAGC space. Recognizing our highlighted courses again, Gen 101 provides the foundation for our students' education journey by exposing them to all the resources UAGC offers. We offer it to all open access students and help them formulate a plan for success. Cognitive primer characters discuss concerns our students express and offer solutions. In Gen 103, students learn to navigate the library and evaluate popular and scholarly sources using frameworks for information literacy and skills they will use every day. Gen 104 exposes our open access students to a variety of reading strategies to use with different academic disciplines and for different purposes. In English 121, students explore writing skills needed in their career by writing in and revising writing notebooks. And in Math 232, boosts students' understanding of math concepts with live learning opportunities, leading to higher scores and an increased sense of belonging. So our mission is to give our open access students class experiences that develop resiliency, perseverance, and a growth mindset, while showing them how to apply their knowledge immediately in their lives of today. And those of us who teach these classes frequently receive student comments like this. Thank you, instructor in the University of Arizona Global Campus, for this excellent course. It has set me on a path to success as an undergraduate student in your class and school. It helped me to think outside the box, to learn more about those scary parts of myself as not good or bad, but as room for improvement. It helped to create a vibrant look and outlook on myself and others. Thank you for providing introductory courses like this to enable the student body to feel more welcomed and wholesome in our online learning student environment. And our daily service to students in general education works to achieve this environment for all students. So thank you again for attending.
Are there any questions anyone would like to ask any of the panel members?
I have some questions for our panelists, but I would love to see if anyone in our audience has any first. maybe while we wait, excuse me, we'll get started. So I wanted to ask our panelists how these different innovations have been opening up access. We've touched on some things already, but maybe even anecdotally, how these innovations have opened up access to the content in these courses.
Becky, I'm happy to start with that. One of my favorite things about Gen 103 is, well, let me back up a second. I'm very fortunate to teach undergrad, grad, and doctoral courses at UAGC. And in all of those courses across the board, one of the foundations is the ability to do research at whatever level, to be able to use the library and to be able to identify credible sources that they can use in whatever work they're doing at UAGC. So when we're teaching these skills in the first year at this entry point level, we're really thinking about what students need to go beyond just our little virtual walls of our 5 weeks. So I think these innovations that we've put into the courses really propel students beyond the specific course and helps them begin to transfer skills from course to course, so that what they're learning in Gen 103 is not just Gen 103, but it's what they're going to use in their personal, professional, and academic lives once they've left Gen 103.
Thank you. There was a question from Vanessa Greaves about the success with live learning, which Holly was spearheading, but live learning has expanded actually to other programs. Gen 104 has live learning, Gen 103, Gen 101. Holly, I'm wondering if I could ask you about the success of live learning and how it's gonna spread her out to multiple courses in SGS.
Yes, I'm not the one responsible for doing the spreading, but based on the report from the Office of Institutional Effectiveness, many courses have begun to include live learning, and many, like the math courses that had optional live learning, are now, as each course is revised, shifting over to required live learning. Our final math class will shift to required live learning at the end of this revision, currently in progress in Q1 of 2024. So what's happened is that in each particular professor's domain, those classes consider where to put that and how to do that. So one thing we do in math that isn't specifically what you asked, but we use the 3 C's approach to live learning. And if anyone wants to learn more about that, I'll put the information in the chat.
Thank you. I think that's a good segue to my next question is, what is the importance of sharing these innovations with other faculty within your academic area, within your discipline? I mean, in communication arts, we have reading and writing, but we also have literature and film. So what do you feel in your respective groups and the School of General Studies as a whole, how important is it to share these innovations? Yes, Holly.
I know that I was inspired when Jen Robinson reported out on the success of that program with required live learning. And without that sharing, I might not have spearheaded and applied for UFP grants to continue the live learning mathematics and then expand it. And by being UFP grant supported, that frees up faculty time, not only to implement the project and manage it, but also to present at conferences, which I've been doing as well. So I just want to thank you, Jen, for sharing out. You sharing out had a direct impact.
That's great, Holly. I think in Gen 101, what we have found is that the course design allows us to introduce students to the next step in their journey. And we have tried to do that in a variety of ways by including student voice, recordings from future instructors. We have Dr. Newton Miller in our course, and if you're an education major, you're going to cross his path. And so he's so dynamic. It's amazing to have his energy in our course. We have lots of other, students who have finished the program, and they kind of give our students this atta girl, atta boy, you can do it, which is so important. But we also, the first 2 weeks of Gen 101 are designed in such a way that there's some auto grading involved, so that when, we have those students kind of rolling in those first 2 weeks, dealing with, as we've talked about in other sessions, dealing with their financial aid, adjusting to the new, schedule of college. And so I think that the first 2 weeks of our course does allow for some of that catch-up time, because our instructors are freed up to kind of communicate with and support students as they're making that transition. So that's one of the ways that we really focus on creating an accessible course to students that is demonstrative of an understanding of what an open access student is.
And my colleagues have been doing such a wonderful job answering questions in the chat. Harla Frank had asked about asynchronous live learning sessions because we do want to support those students. We know there are some students who just won't be able to attend the live session because they're military overseas, their work schedule just doesn't allow it. We try to make them as flexible as possible. Within Gen 104, we make it clear, all you have to do is listen. You don't have to be on camera. You're not going to have to participate unless you want to. So, if they've got kids in the background, all they have to do is listen. But yes, we do have alternatives for those students who cannot attend live. Another question I have are for the panelists, we each have the innovations we've made within our courses. Are there innovations in other courses that you are interested in implementing within your course? And I'm selfishly going to go first because I love Holly's math avatars. And I really want to implement something similar in Gen 104 because so many students don't embrace reading because they don't see themselves as readers. They have a very narrow vision of what reading is, specifically novels, and maybe even more specifically what we consider classic literature when it runs the gamut. So I would love to have a greater diversity of authors and different types of writers within the class, and maybe encourage students to also pick an avatar that speaks to them so they can see themselves in that reading role. Jen, please go ahead.
I loved the chatbot that Holly has in her course, and it just really sparked some great ideas about, there's a program I learned at a deal called Pi, I think it's called pi.ai. But if a student is struggling, they can just put into that, I'm really struggling with, and this AI program starts walking them through how to cope with whatever they're struggling with. And I love the idea of being able to put something like that in information literacy with, I'm struggling to understand if this is a scholarly source, and be able to kind of walk through the characteristics so that students can immediately start thinking about, okay, whether this is a credible source to be able to use for whatever I'm doing. I think that chatbot feature was really unique.
And Teresa.
Yes. So I had the honor of teaching Gen 104 a few months ago. Sadly for Connie, who's on the Gen 101 team, because we were in the middle of a course development project, and I taught the course, and one of the features of the course is this real-time feedback on Gen 104 has this wonderful component where the students do outside reading, and there's engagement with the instructor, and you do that over the whole 5 weeks. So I was learning, reading along with them and really getting excited about these books. And I immediately thought, oh my gosh, this would be fantastic for our SMART goal assignment in week 3 to support students getting some practice and feedback through a quiz before they finish their assignment. And so I'm like, Connie, let's try it. And we're like almost done with the course law. And Connie, you can see her smiling because she's like, yeah, I remember that like eagerness. Like she's like, no, we're almost done. But it was such a good win for our students, right? When we like paused, we did the changes. And now that's one of the best practice activities our students are getting in Gen 101, where they are getting that feedback before they have to do that week 3 assignment. And just that was just one of the things that I immediately asked Becky, can I borrow this? This is really good. So thank you.
And Connie.
I just had a thought, and this will be the first time Teresa has heard this. So this is a conversation we can have in relation to the math avatars. We have students in Gen 101 who don't see themselves as college students at all. Maybe we could do something with that, Teresa, and we could have avatars of people who became college students who didn't think that they could do it. How about that? Next revision.
I love that idea. You know, I'm game for that. There's a chat, Becky, in the, there's a question from the WOVA, and I always pronounce that. Did I pronounce it correctly, Jen? WOVA chat. So it says, are you teaching the meal plan for paragraph development? Why am I getting third-year students who are not using proper punctuation, grammar, and capitalization in their writing?
I think the first part is it's important to note that not everyone who is in their third and fourth year of college took their general education here at the University of Arizona Global Campus. If you think about the writing course, think back to the undergrad experience, English composition is one of the first courses students take. So if the student took a semester or two of college and stopped for whatever reason, they probably brought that credit in with them to UAGC. And it may have been a while since they have taken an English course, and there's skills that they need to dust off and practice. In terms of what we specifically teach in English composition, we refer more to what the Writing Center does, which we talk about PI, introduce and support and cite, and make a point and include support for it, and then explain your thinking behind it. But we don't specifically tell students they have to follow one particular format, because we know writing is an art and a science. So there's a science part to it where you can have a sentence that says this, a sentence that says this, and the next sentence says this, and all of that. But students don't have to be in that particular bucket, because we have students who really need to brush up on their skills and students who really don't. So we don't teach a specific method, but we do refer them to the Writing Center resources.
We do the same thing in Gen 101. We really make Grammarly almost a mandatory app. I mean, I have it on my own phone and I share with them. Grammarly checks my text messages. I mean, it's like a tool that you can use to just edit yourself and proofread. So that's one of my standard comments. Use Grammarly for proofreading. Our students do come in. We have open access students that come in varied experiences, and we are going to meet them where they are, and we're going to have those tutors available. We're going to have that writing support available, and we're going to coach them in the course as much as we can. So I think that that if we can all work on that in each of our courses, and I think we do, I think that's the benefit that our students get to.
One thing I have already implemented, which I'm going to put the link to in the chat for that same course and for one of the other courses, is what I call the hub page, the Math 232 statistics support page. So all of the main things that students might need are organized on there, and they're organized there by week. So there's a welcome video, there's tips to succeed, and then you can click on week 3 if you're stuck on the week 3 discussion, and there's a video tutorial. So one of my plans is to expand that so that there's more material. At the bottom, I put you can email math@uagc.edu, and I take requests, and I haven't gotten requests, so maybe everything that needs to be on there is on there. But students are looking at these pages. I get reports back from Matt Galloway, who helped to set those up. So I think that having that, all of these extra layers of support that we're discussing, a chat bot, a math avatar, or an English avatar, or a college student avatar, or a hub page. All these things are that extra layer of support so that students have this feeling, an inner feeling, hey, if I get stuck, I've got insurance. I've got something that I can reach for. And, if a student goes into the Math 232 final exam and never uses the chat bot because they understood the material, the student's not disappointed. It's there if you need it. And that's what we really want when we think about open access. We really want to have in all of our School of General Studies classes those extra layers of support. And spreading the best ideas around means that we have more students who are supported in more classes, and that's a good thing.
Thank you, Holly. I see Kim has popped on camera, so I'm guessing it's time.
That it is. I was trying to be sly, but maybe it wasn't as ninja as I thought it was. But I just want to say thank you to our esteemed panel members. I learned a lot here, and Holly, you did kind of make me excited about math. but I'm not saying I don't want to retake it, but I think it was amazing. So thank you for everything you shared with us today, all the work you do. Thank you to the audience for your participation. We